Hello, welcome to your brand new unit about linear relations. So we're into chapter 9 of the textbook, right? So if you need to reference your textbook, please look to chapter 9. Now, the whole idea here for chapter 9.1 or section 9.9 is analyzing graphs. So looking at a graph, seeing what information we can take from it. Graphs are just a visual way to represent numbers, right? And patterns in numbers. Now, linear relation, right? Linear means a line, right? And in this case, right, we're talking about straight lines. So everything that we do this unit are straight lines. And relation is like a relationship, right? So how things interact together, how one affects the other, right? So that's what we'll be studying. So let's look at the first question. It says, you can use the coordinates of the points on a graph to make a table of values. So, table of values is like an X, Y, T chart, right? Looks like that. Now, remember, on the horizontal, right, that's your X. So, horizontal is left to right, left along the ground. And then your Y-axis is the vertical, right? So, that means horizontal, this is vertical. I always remember that Y is vertical, right, because it looks like a big Y, like that. So, whatever you need to do to remember. Now, what we're going to do is take that first data point, right, and put it into our table of values. Now, each data point is made up of an X and a Y, right? So, to figure out what the X is, right, you take the dot, go down until you hit that line, and that's horizontal. So, my X is 1. Right, I'll go over to the Y, and the Y is 2, right? So that data point is at 1 and 2, right? And off you go, right? This is 2 and 4, 3 and 6, 4 and 8, and the last one, 5 and 10, right? So, right, all the way down here, all the way over here. So, a couple things to note when you're making a table of values, right, is that the top row or the left column, right, so we're talking about the top row or the left column, right, is always the same as the horizontal axis. Now, in the previous question, right, horizontal is X, but sometimes horizontal could be time. In this case up here, horizontal was the radius of a circle, right? So it's not always X, right, but we say horizontal. So if we're talking about this radius of the circle, my X values were 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And there's not a space for 5, but that's okay. And then same thing over here, 1, 2, 3, and I didn't even make a space for 4, but you get the idea. And then the second row, right, which is the one right here, the bottom, right, or the one on the right, would then have to... That doesn't look right. Oh, a bit closer. All right, so in this case, all right, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. Seeing a bunch of patterns coming through when you do it like this, eh? 2, 4, 6. All right, so that's the first page. All right, why don't you flip it over to the next page here? Okay, page number 2. So it says make a table of values. So, all right, there's a little T chart, right? Because it looks like a T. Now, the X or the horizontal is hours or time, right? So that goes on the left. So time in hours, right? And the vertical is distance in miles. So this time they're not distinct dots, right? But one straight line. So, right, you get to pick where the line crosses at easy to read places. So for example, right here, that's not in a nice junction, right, between the grid marks. So it's hard to get a really precise answer. So why don't we pick data points like right here, 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 and here, because they cross at nice pretty numbers. Right, so I'll do the first one here. So this is 1 and this is 0. Halfway, right, is 0.5. So we're talking about half an hour or 0.5 an hour. And go over to the left. Right, halfway between 50 and 0 is 25. Okay, so why don't you pause right here and do the... Okay, so hopefully you got answers similar to the table of values you see there. If not, pause, right, and make some corrections. Otherwise, let's move on to the next question. So it says, a linear relation is a pattern made by a set of points that lie in already talked about this, straight line. So, right, if it's not a straight line, it's not a linear relation. So we've got a linear relation over here on the right. It says when you describe a pattern, tell what it relates to, where it starts, and how it changes. So a couple of things missing here. We don't know what the x is. I'm going to tell you that that's time in minutes. And then the y-axis is distance in kilometers, right? And then the title is how far you go. Okay, so let's say we're going to say when you describe the pattern, tell what it relates to. So, right, this is going to be answering in words. So you can say this shows the relationship between time and distance. Okay, so that's saying what the relationship is. And then the next part, where does it start? Right at 0, 0. So at 0 minutes, you have gone 0 kilometers. Right? Nice and easy. And then how it changes. This is a little bit trickier. So in 100 minutes, you go 300 kilometers. Sorry, it's so small. Right? So 200 minutes, 600 kilometers. Right? It looks like for every 100 minutes, I go 300 kilometers. Right? So that's what I'll say. For every 100 minutes, you go 300 kilometers. Right? And we can maybe finish it off with at 500 minutes, you or they have gone 1,500 kilometers. Okay. So that's how to describe something in words. All right. So we can describe stuff in pictures. Right, like we've done with the graph. Describe things in a table of values, like we've done up there. The third way I've just showed you is describing it in words. Right, so why don't you take a minute to finish copying that out, and I'll see you on the next page. Okay, so now it's time to talk about some nitty-gritty stuff with graphing. Now, graphing is such an important skill. You'll need it all the way into the senior levels in math and science and socials. So we'll go over some general rules and expectations for this year for graphing. First thing, right, you need to use a ruler, right? Gotta have a ruler. Next thing, right, there should be titles, and I'm going to put it like with an S because it should have like a main title and on the axes, right, the X and Y. Third thing, right, you need to have units on your axis, right, units on the axis. And then fourth thing, should be in pencil, right, really important. Even your good copies, right? No colored pencils and stuff, all just pencil. And then the last one is an appropriate scale. All right, so that means what you're going up by on the left and the right, or on the vertical and the horizontal. All right, so 5 big things. So let's practice. It says, graph the following data. All right, so remember that the thing on the left is your X, right, or your horizontal, right? And the column on the right, right, is the Y, or the vertical. Now, the hardest part, I think, is trying to figure out this appropriate scale thing. So, right, you want to use as much of that graph as possible. So along the X, I need to get to 4. All right, I need to go up by 4s. So we got a lot of room here. So let's make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Let's make that 1. We'll see if that fits. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Uh-oh. Don't think it'll fit. Right? That's why we use pencil. So let's go up by 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make that 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's your X. also known as time, right? So there's my title for my x-axis and my units, right? All those rules apply. So on to the y, right? The y was hours worked, or money, right? Pay, right? My units are in dollars. This time I have to get all the way to 44. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that 10? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we close 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, it looks like I'll just be off. That'll be okay for today. So you notice x and y aren't the same, right? Right down here, 5 is worth 1, and on the y, right, 5 is worth 5. Just as long as it's consistent the entire x and the entire y, you're okay. So last thing I need to do here is worry about a title, right, where it's the relationship between time and pay. So something like how much you get paid, and the time is in an hour, so we can say per hour. What's that? Per hour. Okay, so why don't you pause it here and see if you can connect some of those dots, right? Plot those points, right? This is your x and your y. See what you can do and come and check back in a minute. All right, welcome back. So hopefully you've got 4 red dots that look something like that. Now you may or may not have connected the dots. Right? Now I chose not to, right? Because if I work for 3.5 hours, I don't know if I get the half increment. Right? You don't know. Maybe you only get paid 33 or 34. There is no in between, right? You have an hourly rate, not like a minute rate. So as far as I know, right, there's no information between those 2 points. If it's something continual, like temperature, time, right, then you connect the dots. But in this case, right, I don't really know, so I left my dots separate. If it was a situation where you connected the dots, right, of course you'd use a ruler. Perfect, so make some corrections, and let's go off to... Okay, so the last question, well, second to last question here, carrying on that same idea. It says, sometimes it is possible to have points between the ones on the graph. So it doesn't make sense to have other values between those on the graph. So this is going to be different in every situation. Now this is talking about temperature in Kelvin, right, and volume in milliliters. So ask yourself, is it possible to have a temperature of 440, right, or 275, right? Can you have a volume between 100 and 200? Yep, you sure can. It makes sense. So in this case, we'll say yes. It makes sense, right? You can have volume between 200 to 300 milliliters, right? Positive you can. And temperature between, right, 300 and 350, right? For example, right? If we're talking about people, right, that's an example where you can't really have half a person, right? So you'd have to have distinct dots that way. Okay, so your homework is to do the question below. It says, look at the points on the graph to complete the following table of values. Right? Now, you only have 2 data points. It's not very much at all. The question says, okay, based on this trend, how much would it cost for 6 posters? If 1 poster costs $8, 2 posters cost $16, how much would the 6 posters be? So I'd like you to plot, right, 3 points. Also plot a 6, right? What would be, or would it be reasonable to have points between the ones on the graph? Explains. That's what we were just talking about. And then when you're graphing, remember those 5 rules, 5 things you should have. Okay, good luck. The answer key will be posted on the website, and we'll see you in class.